We give a welcome to Reverend Dr. James Baneck, set apart to serve. He is the Executive Director of LCMS Pastoral Education Committee, oversees the Post-Seminary Applied Learning and Support Program. Since 2019, he also oversees the building of the Synod-wide Collaborative, Comprehensive, Long-Term Church Work Formation and Recruitment Culture, set apart to serve. His first essay is Building a Culture of Church Work Formation and Recruitment. And since this is indeed the entire focus of our whole convention in raising up workers, let us give him a warm welcome.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to start with a little video first, so let's shoot with that. 5 years ago, Set Apart to Serve set out to address the challenge of meeting the need for church workers in our synod today and for generations to come. Thanks to your involvement, I can tell you that together we are making tremendous progress toward creating a culture of church work formation and recruitment throughout the synod. But I also caution that without your continued active involvement and commitment, we will fall into a cycle of starts and stops that have brought us to where we are today. At virtually every LCMS convention since Synod began in 1847, we have attempted to address this issue of forming full-time church workers. Throughout our history, we would make progress only to lose sight of the long-term need. Together, we must make sure the progress all of us are making in Set Apart to Serve continues. When we launched Set Apart to Serve in 2019, we learned two things from our research that we needed to immediately address. Our current church workers said the greatest influence on their decision came from the encouragement they received from the church workers in their life. Unfortunately, that same research revealed less than 50% were having those conversations with young people in their own lives. Over the last 5 years, we have seen the roots of positive culture change in our synod finally take hold. In 2025, more than 80% of church workers reported they are now having conversations with young people about pursuing a church work vocation. That is a tremendous sign and progress that exceeded our expectations in 5 years. But our work is not done. Forming and recruiting full-time church workers requires great effort from all of us, every pastor, commissioned worker, parent, and layperson in the synod. We are not taking part in a short-term initiative. We are building and forming a culture. This begins, first of all, by raising our children in the Christian faith. We also want to intentionally encourage and talk to youth and adults. This is what God's people do. Raise up church workers from one generation to the next. That's why Set Apart to Serve developed many excellent resources to help you answer your questions. If you are watching this video, you have the influence, the determination, and the ability to affect this culture change. You will make a difference in supplying the church with workers today and for generations to come. Thank you. We're going to switch over computers here now. Thank you very much for the invitation. Most of all, thank you very much, President Ahrens, for having this to be your theme. How wonderful. This culture of church work, formation, and recruitment really is growing and building as we move forward. So building off of that video, let's just kind of dive into where we are, where we're going, but most of all, I'd like to talk about your role, however you serve as pastor, as commissioned church worker, parent, lay person, grandparent, as we continue to build this culture. So this is there we go. This is a little self-serving showing you my family. I have 4 children, 4 married children, and they all have children of their own, so I'm a grandfather of 10. The little picture down there is added since the bigger picture was taken. But mostly why I wanted to show that picture to you is think about your own family, and if you have children, grandchildren, or the people in your own congregation. If you're like my wife and I, our greatest desire is that our children and grandchildren know Jesus Christ and have eternal salvation. We pray every morning in our family devotions for that very thing, that they would know Jesus Christ. And for them to know Jesus Christ, they need godly parents, of course, and also pastors who will serve them throughout their lifetime. So let's kind of think about that as we look at set apart to serve. You've been using the Luke translation or the Luke Gospel. I'd like to take you over to the Matthew Gospel, which says pretty much the same thing, but would like to set you in the context just a little bit. And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. They were like sheep without a pastor, without somebody showing them the word, preaching to them, teaching them about Jesus Christ and eternal salvation. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few." The harvest is plentiful because many do not know Jesus Christ. Billions of people around the world do not know Jesus Christ. We could never supply enough pastors to be able to proclaim the gospel to all people, but we're certainly going to try. And so the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Even in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, there is a shortage of pastors. But we're not going to focus so much on the shortage. We're going to focus on what we can do to form and to recruit those pastors and other church workers. And we're going to earnestly pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. So with that in mind, let's think about set apart to serve. I could talk to you about set apart to serve for 3 days. I could talk to you about for 3 hours, but you very generously in a convention time given me 2 45-minute sections. So we're not going to talk about some things. First of all, we could talk about how we got to set apart to serve. It did start in 2019 and 2023 Convention Resolution 601, where the Synod Convention said we do indeed need a church worker recruitment effort that would be long-lasting, that would be synod-wide, that would be collaborative among all the parties involved. And we did say that we do have a need for pastors, teachers, and all church workers. And we'll talk about all the 8 vocation church workers in just a few moments. But our 2 greatest needs right now in the Missouri Synod, we are very short of Lutheran school teachers. That's the #1 shortage that we have right now. We have about 20,000 teachers teaching in our Lutheran schools, but only about 10,000 of them are synodically trained and rostered. And so and thank God that we have other people who are teaching in our schools, but we would really like to increase that number of rostered teachers so that we can continue to have that environment and culture, that Lutheran ethos in which our children are raised in the scriptures and the Lutheran confessions. And there is a need for pastors as well. There are some circles that kind of misuse some of our statistics. For instance, we put out a statistic about 3 years ago that said, if we do nothing, We could go from 6,000 pastors to 3,000 pastors in 15 years. Some are out there saying, well, that's the reality, but that is not the reality. We are doing something, and we're already seeing a change in an increase in enrollments and activity in church work formation. So don't let that scare you. The Lord is not going to leave us without pastors. All of our, I could talk to you about all of our research, our surveys, our pilot programs, our interviews. We're research-driven. Every year we do a number of research projects. We survey the synod, we survey church workers, youth, laity, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. Your own district is a part of pilot projects that we are involved in. We take a small subsection with different topics, whether it be teachers, whether it be circuit visitors, whether it be schools, and we talk about how we're going to make better resources by working with those pilot projects. So we're doing that constantly and building out more and more resources. Some of those resources that you saw in the video. I could talk to you also about caring for church workers. I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but what we said, what we learned, our current church workers said, only 50% of us are talking to our youth about considering church work. And when we dug a little deeper, we said, why are you not talking to our youth about church workers? And the three main answers that we got back were, well, we just don't think about it, I guess. It just doesn't come up. Number two is I suffer in my own vocation as a pastor, as a church worker. Why would I want my youth to do that? And number three is I'm not making a whole lot of money doing what I'm doing, so why would I want my children to not make money and be wealthy in life? And so we're not trying to make anyone wealthy, but we are addressing those issues. We have a worker wellness group that's working with the Office of National Mission, my office in pastoral education, the Health Concordia plans, and then also representatives of the Council of Presidents. And we are working on building out resources, just like Set Apart to Serve, but building out resources to congregations about how do we care for our church workers, how do we pay them fairly, how do we understand the boundaries, not too many expectations that they shouldn't have laid upon them, just a number of things that make life difficult for church workers. So we're working on that as well. I could talk to you also about Set Apart to Serve starting in a number of phases. We first started with the youth phase, from infant baptism or even conception to 12th grade. That was where the main focus of our first couple of years is building a new generation, forming and recruiting our youth, raising up a new generation of church workers. In the last 2 years now, we've also been working on second career. And the great need for second career, and we'll talk about that a little bit more too in just a few moments. But we're working mostly with the seminaries, with the colloquy, with the universities, and talking about raising up second career pastors and teachers especially. I could also talk to you about All Nations and the effort that we're doing there. President Harrison did a great job talking about All Nations just a few minutes ago before the break. And All Nations isn't something separate about how do we care for Hispanic people or raise up Hispanic pastors, and how do we raise up Asian pastors and church workers. But it's laying all nations over all the things that we do, realizing that we are all the body of Christ. And so we make a very concerted effort to realize that we need church workers from every ethnic group, from every race, and we are working with all of those different entities. Also internationally, two of our international partners has invited me from Asia and also from Eurasia, saying, we hear what you're doing about church work recruitment, and we have the same issues. we would love for you to come and visit us as well and talk about that. So I've gone internationally. So the Missouri Synod has the attention in church work recruitment internationally as well. So what are we doing any good in Set Apart to Serve? Well, we really are. And thanks to you and to all the Synod, these are some of the things that we're seeing already. One of the first things we had to do was build awareness. And when you're working with a 1.78 million member body, 35 districts with 2.7 million opinions, and the whole story about Synod, and trying to bring everyone together and to make everyone aware of the same message, the same need. That's what we're really working on, especially in the first couple of years. So building that awareness that there is this thing called Set Apart to Serve, that we are indeed needing to work on forming church workers, recruiting church workers, and some of the things that we found out in our research from 2021 to 2024, 54% of pastors in 2021, realizing Set Apart to Serve was fairly new then, said, yeah, we've heard about Set Apart to Serve and we're starting to implement some of the resources. In 2024, we haven't done the 2025 research yet, 88% of our pastors said, yeah, we know about Set Apart to Serve, and we are having conversations with youth and second career adults about considering church work. Same thing with our commissioned workers, like DCEs, deaconesses, Lutheran school teachers. 39% said in 2021 that, yep, we've heard about Set Apart to Serve, but look at 88% now, and last year said, yep, we know about it, we're working on it, we're talking to our youth about considering church work. Our laity are lagging a little bit just because it's harder in the Missouri Synod. Like, we don't have the addresses of every lay person in the Missouri Synod, so we have to work through pastors and through districts. So that's what we're actually doing. And you can see that number is starting to increase. 2 years ago, I could go into an audience like this and say, heard about Set Apart to Serve, and many people hadn't. Now I can go into almost any audience in the Missouri Synod and say, oh yeah, we've heard about it, tell us more, and we are. Look at the other great news that's happening. I just pulled out 3 of our Concordias. I could have listed all of them, but Concordia St. Paul reports that they have the most church work students on campus since 2012, with a cohort of over 100 students. All of these Concordias are working hand in glove, 150% with Set Apart to Serve. We're working on strategies, we're working on funding together, and they would be the first to say, and I have some quotes, but I didn't use it for this presentation, of all these presidents saying they're working hard on their own, but in collaboration with Set Apart to Serve, it's made it all the better for church work recruitment. Look at Concordia, Nebraska. Dr. Wool reports that they have increased the number of incoming church work students by 23% this last academic year. Concordia Irvine said they've increased the number of incoming church work students by 43% this last academic year. So we're really starting to see some improvement. But we should never stop. Just because we start seeing improvement, the devil is certainly right around the corner and would love to make a mess of all this. So we continue to form and recruit church workers and send them to the Concordias. Other resources and messaging, just to keep this conscious in your own mind. The Lutheran Witness. Last year we had an article about Set Apart to Serve every single month. This year we've had one 4 times, 2 online, 2 on print. I complained that we didn't have them all in print, but I was told the online gets read more than the print, so they made me feel better. The Reporter, we've had an article in the Reporter in just about every single reporter. So read your reporters to find out what's going on in Set Apart to Serve, what's new, what are some ideas and best practices that you can use. Cheryl Magnus is the chief editor for The Reporter, and I always tell her I want the Set Apart to Serve articles on the front page about the fold. I never get that, but it is in there. KFUO is working with us on the Coffee Hour program every single Friday for the last 2 years, and will continue, is dedicated just to Set Apart to Serve. We have a number of speakers, a number of invitees talking about all different aspects of church work, from parents to educators to church work students, to presidents of our institutions, to higher things, to the youth gathering, just a number of people, and they're just half hour, and you can go back and listen to them. You're running, you're driving, you can pull them up and just listen to them, and they're actually very enjoyable. We have a newsletter for the district ed execs, for all the ed execs. If a district doesn't have an ed exec, it goes to someone that the district president gave us their name to, or to the district president himself. But the ed execs are working with us 100%, and their work, and working with schools especially, is promoting Set Apart to Serve. Our awareness campaign, just through all these modes that I'm talking about. We put out a monthly president's report. When we first started Set Apart to Serve being a new thing in the Synod, we gave a report to President Harrison monthly saying this is what we're doing, this is how it's going. Since then, it's grown to over, I think it's 800 recipients, stakeholders who receive that newsletter. If you want to receive it, contact me and we'll make sure you get on that mailing list. I already said that, sorry. And then organic social media campaign. We're working always through social media, and especially with our youth, getting their attention for Set Apart to Serve. Look what's going on in Set Apart to Serve in just the last couple of years. We asked the question to pastors, commission workers, and laity, are you having at least one conversation, or are you having a conversation with at least one youth or second career adult about considering church work? In 2022, 71% said, yep, we're starting to have, we're having a conversation with at least one, and in most cases it was with more than one. Remember when we first started, it was 50%, right? So already in a couple of years. In 2023, 84% of our Synod people, laity, leaders said, yep, we're having at least one conversation with a youth or second career about considering church work. In 2024, 92% said, yep, we're having a conversation. So you can see all of our work together is increasing and improving and having those conversations. Let's just talk about what Set Apart to Serve is. So let's just back up for a minute. Set Apart to Serve is a church work formation and recruitment culture. We started out by saying it was an initiative. We never really knew what word to use because initiative sounds like it's got a beginning and an end, right? Set Apart to Serve does not have an end. We will do all we can within our power to say, we're going to form and recruit church workers in the Missouri Synod until the Lord returns. And we're very, very serious about that. Whether I'm here or someone else is leading this venture, this is something that the church just does. You saw in the video, and I did this research myself, I went to every single convention proceedings. And there's only one convention since 1920, because I don't know my German as well as President Harrison did, so I just took the English. And so every convention except one said, we need to do something about church work recruitment, shortage of pastors and shortage of teachers, mostly what was spoken throughout all the conventions. We did a few starts and stops along the way, but nothing really took hold. And we ended up in the same boat, needing more church workers, not having enough pastors, having too many vacancies, and so on. So this is a culture. We want to embed forming and recruiting church workers in the very culture and fiber of our synod and to all of our congregations and to all of our church workers. Matter of fact, one of the things we're doing right now is we're interviewing professors from the Concordia seminaries and the Concordia universities of how we can work together, of how they can form their students to be eventual influential adults once they receive a call, that they can keep this culture going. And we're really enjoying those conversations, and they're very excited about being a part of that. So, set apart to serve as a church work formation recruitment culture in every LCMS congregation, home, school, district, and entity. No one is exempt. It's all boots on the ground. Everyone's on the playing field. No one can say, yes, somebody should be recruiting or someone should be talking to our youth. Looking at each of ourselves, that's our responsibility. That if we have those youth around us or second career individuals around us, we have those conversations with them. Among every pastor, parent, layperson, commissioned church worker, and district personnel, so that the word of Christ may be preached, taught, witnessed, and shared for the eternal salvation of our children, grandchildren, family, friends, and neighbors. Kind of where we started with my self-serving family picture earlier. But look at your own family and your own children and grandchildren. You want a pastor there in times of joy, in times of despair, in times of birth, in times of death. And so that's why we need these pastors and teachers and church workers that are going to carry the gospel in their full-time vocation. So just looking at the Oklahoma district itself, the synod, every single one of our districts and every single one of our district presidents is working with us. But let's just zero this in on you and on your own district, on the Oklahoma district, of what you're doing. And boy, what great signs already, right? I mean, you're committing and dedicating a whole convention theme just to this very topic. So thank you again very much. But laying what's set apart to serve on your district, that's what I would encourage you with. That's what I want to leave you with today, is saying, not only in Minnesota, not only in Missouri, not only in Indiana or California, but right here in the Oklahoma district, in every circuit, in every congregation, in every school, in every family, we are raising up our children, one, in the faith, and two, to consider church work. When I say everyone's on board, I mean absolutely everyone. Anyone that you can possibly think of in the synod, every major entity in the synod is working with us, from schools to all the districts to higher things, to the youth gathering, to LCMS school ministry, to all of our district presidents. We're meeting with seminary personnel at least once a month, if not more. We're meeting with Concordia University personnel constantly. KFUO, LCEF, LWML, strong supporters of Set Apart to Serve. Just about everyone. But I would like you to be thinking for yourself, this funnel, the top of the funnel is you and your congregations, your family, your school, you as a pastor, you as a commission worker, you as a lay person, in and amongst your congregations and your family, talking to youth, raising them up in the faith all the way from conception, as you have them in the Word already in the womb, all the way up through 12th grade. And then eventually having these conversations about considering being a pastor or a teacher. What we're doing is we're trying to move our youth so gently and kindly down into our Concordia universities, into our seminaries, so that there they can be formed, shaped, certified to be Lutheran church workers. This is how we're continually building this culture. So what do we mean when we're talking about church workers in the Missouri Synod? First of all, I'm glad President Harrison was before me, because he said a lot of things that lead into this, and that is all of us can share the gospel, right? So you don't have to be a pastor to proclaim the word. You don't have to be a Lutheran school teacher to tell a child about Christ. Every vocation, every godly vocation is a good vocation. And by the way, if our youth end up going to be engineers, which two of my children are, or doctors, or working maintenance, or IT, or whatever field they are in, those are godly vocations, serving God and neighbor. So that's good. But for those youth who we really see, I think they would be a great pastor, or I think they would make a great Lutheran school teacher. It's those youth we want to direct toward full-time church work, where they, for full-time in their life, will be proclaiming the gospel. One is the pastor, the ordained pastor. And set apart to serve, we certainly do confess that this is the one divinely commanded office by our Lord. Jesus himself commanded the pastoral office. Articles 5 and 14 of the Augsburg Confession we certainly hold to, and we advocate, and in our materials and our resources we certainly teach this and share this. Where one goes to one of our two seminaries, whether it's in St. Louis or Fort Wayne, to finally be certified and to be called and ordained. In our agenda of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, in our Lutheran Service book, we say the commissioned workers are established and loved by the church to support the office of the holy ministry. What are those vocations? When I was, a couple of years ago, I was in a youth league meeting, and I was talking to them about considering church work. And a boy in high school raised his hand and said, I know what a pastor is, but you talk about all these other things. What are those other things? And we soon realized that many of our own church workers, but certainly our laity and certainly our youth, don't realize that there are 8 different ways to serve full-time as a full-time church worker in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. So we put out a little pamphlet, and that's been one of our best pamphlets on the 8 vocations. So what are those commissioned workers? It's certainly the Lutheran school teacher. We brought Lutheran school teachers over with us from Germany before 1847, pastors and teachers working together, teaching our children, raising them in the faith. A little bit later in Synod's history, we developed the Office of the Director of Christian Education, or DCE as we know it, Director of Christian Outreach, leading a congregation in evangelism and outreach and witness, Director of Family Life Ministry, dealing with family life, the theology of manhood, womanhood, family, the vocations of mother, father, husband, wife, child. Director of Parish Music is a great need in our synod right now. Good sacred church musicians, organists, choir directors are certainly needed. Director of Church Ministries, that's in a simple way, that's Concordia University, Wisconsin's version of a DCE. But so if you want to go to Concordia, Wisconsin and kind of have a DCE education, you would graduate with Director of Church Ministries. And then deaconess are for females only. We get stuck every once in a while. One time we put out a resource that says we need pastors and teachers and DCEs to preach, teach, and the gospel, and kind of got pelted online Facebook said pastors don't preach. Well, we knew that. We're trying to do more of a shorthand, but you should never do that with theology, right? And so certainly pastors alone preach, and the other commissioned workers certainly do teach and share the gospel. Pastors are men only. Deaconesses are females only. Where do you go to be one of these? Well, to one of our Concordias, right? All the black dots are Concordias. We are working, like I said earlier, hand in glove with all of our Concordias. Just a magnificent relationship with all the presidents. I can email them and say, hey, can you help me with this resource, or can you be on this focus group? And immediately they're busy men, and yet they know this is very important. Dr. Bull is on our advisory council for Set Apart to Serve, so they meet 3 times a year. We bring them together to have an outside look, people from the outside looking in on Set Apart to Serve, telling us what we can do better, how we can continue to promote Set Apart to Serve with their own expertise. And certainly our 2 seminaries, and only these 2 seminaries, is where you become a pastor in the Lutheran Church of Missouri Synod. So what does a culture of church work formation and recruitment look like in your congregation, home, and school? Again, in our research, it came back to us, and in our roster statistics and research in the Missouri Synod, when we do Set Apart to Serve research and polls and surveys, I know you probably feel like you get surveyed to death by the Missouri Synod, but we are told that our Set Apart to Serve surveys you respond to those very, very well. So thank you very much. So we know we have a good cross section when we're citing our research statistics. Anyway, we said, what are the 5 main things that most influenced you or encouraged you to consider being a church worker? The number 1 thing shouldn't be any surprise to us. They came back and said, what most influenced me was being in divine service every single Sunday. My parents had me in church every Sunday to receive the word and the sacraments. That's what most influenced me. In Set Apart to Serve, we say, you can't be a church worker until you're first a Christian, right? So we raise our children to be in the Christian faith, eventually to consider full-time church work. What does that look like in your own context? Immersing your children and grandchildren in word and sacraments. In the divine service, certainly bringing them to church, not giving them the option of whether to go to church or not. If you're the parent, take them to church. Bible study, where they continue to learn God's Word. Study and or reading the Scriptures at home. Having home devotions, whether it's reading from a devotional book. Certainly the Catechism is a really great resource to be teaching our children at home. In our Lutheran schools, if there is one around you, or a number of homeschooling associations are going up in the Lutheran Church. Confirmation instruction. By the way, we asked also in that same survey about 3 years ago, at what time of life as a youth did you most consider church work? And about 91% came back to us and said, that was during my confirmation instruction with my pastor. So that's a significant time, pastors, or whoever you have, if you have somebody else like a DCE or somebody helping you with confirmation instruction. That's a significant time to be talking to our children. That age group, generally, 5 through 9th grade, somewhere in that squishy area, they're beginning to think what I want to do with my life. They're beginning to think more about their life in Christ, their faith life in Christ. We found out that in high school, in high school they often have kind of developed in their own mind, but I'm going to go be a nurse, or I'm going to go be a doctor, or something like that. Not that they can't change their mind in high school, not that we don't talk to high schoolers, we certainly do. But just kind of bear in mind that junior high school, middle school time in their life is a great time to talk to your youth about considering church work. CPH curriculum, which we'll talk about in just a minute. There's a curriculum from CPH that's free to you that we would encourage you to use, and youth events, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Number 2 is nurturing and encouraging your children and adults through genuine relationships. I know that can kind of sound trite, or you hear often, well, building relationships, but it really is important. We just did a survey about 2 years ago asking lay people, are you having conversations about to the youth in your congregation about considering church work? And we heard a number of times coming back to us, not only are we not talking to the youth in our congregation about church work, we're not talking to them. That's pretty significant. And so we would encourage intergenerational conversation, activity, working together, caring for one another in the congregation, not just about church work, but how is your basketball game, or how's school going, or how is it living with 4 other brothers and sisters. Just building that relationship with our youth so that you do have the right to come and talk to them about, hey, you look like you'd be a great pastor. I think you should consider that. We built a relationship with them already to do that. Pastors as well. Pastors giving pastoral care to the youngest of the youngest, right? Kneeling down at times with youth and talking to them, knowing that my pastor cares about me. Growing that relationship eventually to have them talk to them about church work. Certainly other church workers, grandparents. I have a 6-7-year-old grandson. His dad's a veterinarian, and I just left him in North Dakota yesterday. And I said, Elijah, I think you'd be a great pastor. No, I'm not going to be a veterinarian. I said, no, I think you'd be a great pastor. No, I'm going to be a veterinarian. But I'm going to keep working on it. Anyway. A culture of church work formation and recruitment looks like this: providing opportunities for your children to serve, being a part of the community of the church. When we were putting together the CPH curriculum for Set Apart to Serve, we went to Lutheran Church Extension Fund, and they gave us a $200,000 gift to do this curriculum. And it was considered that we should just do curriculum for kindergarten through 12th grade. The LCMS people thought that would be a good thing and provide the resources for free. And I said, how about preschool through 12th grade? And the person I was talking to said, how can you talk to a preschooler about being a church worker? And I said, that's a prime time, first of all, to be forming the faith. My wife's a preschool teacher. She teaches Bible stories, hymns. When the pastor walks by, she says, that's Pastor Sal, and he preaches God's word to us. You can take the kids up into the sanctuary and talk about what the pastor does and what the church musician does. So the littlest of the littlest can be involved, even in the serving opportunities in the life of the church. The littlest of the littlest can move chairs or pick up garbage or feeling a part of the congregation. As they get older and climb in years, being involved in the music program, playing an instrument, being in the children's choir, helping usher alongside a grandpa or dad or another adult. Eventually teaching them to be on the altar guild or to be an acolyte, helping with Sunday school, being a youth representative on a committee if your congregation provides that kind of opportunity. Writing thank you notes to our church workers. There's just a number of ways that youth can be involved in the life of the church, and that is really important. Our current church workers told us, so we didn't bring that up like in the International Center at St. Louis, said, hey, we think this would be a great thing. But current church workers said, that's what really influenced me, is my congregation made me a part of the congregation and serving in the congregation. They also told us it was really important once they entered middle school and high school to be involved in activities with like-minded youth outside of their congregation. Certainly with people in their congregation, but going to, for instance, the National Youth Gathering, where they're talking about other youth, seeing that there are a lot of other Lutherans out there their age. For instance, at the last youth gathering, the LCMS booth was just set apart to serve for the most part. We had some missionaries there as well. And it was 20,000 kids coming by, and we were talking to them about considering church work. We had asked President Harrison to sit there at one time, and those youth were lined up down the hallway just to talk to him. And he was talking to them about, hey, are you considering church work? We would direct those youth when we started talking to them, hey, you see that Concordia University over there? That booth over there? You've got to go and talk to them. See what programs they are, ask them how much tuition is, ask them what kind of programs they have, and so on. I see my person's up here, but let me just finish this one. Encouraging or engaging your youth. Oh, I didn't say the other ones very quickly. Higher Things. We are at all Higher Things. They're working with us. Christ Academy and Vocatio at the two seminaries. Tomorrow I fly to Fort Wayne. I'll be teaching high school boys and girls the Augsburg Confession for 4 hours throughout the week. I did it 2 years ago. They loved it. They ate it up. And they actually asked for that topic once again. And then finally, engaging your youth in vocational discussions. When they're very little, you're talking to them about vocation, being a baptized child of God, table of duties. Eventually talking to them, showing them what the church workers are. You could be a Lutheran school teacher, you could be a pastor. And eventually engaging in those conversations of, would you consider being a pastor? Can I take you to a Concordia to show you what programs they have, and so on. So it's kind of a good place to stop. In the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about specific things that you and your congregation can say and do to have this culture of church work formation and recruitment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Baneck. His presentation, part 2, will be at 1:45.